This is the Lessons in Positivity videocast. Here's your host, Scott Peterson.
Hello again from the Positive Athlete Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm Scott Peterson, and welcome to Lessons in Positivity. We have a great show for you today. Meghan Klingenberg from the U.S. Women's National Team stops by to discuss the fact that her 5'3" frame never let her dreams of playing in the FIFA Women's World Cup, Olympic Games, or for the Portland Thorns in the NWSL from happening. Next, you'll hear from Dr. Tiffany Jones, a mental performance consultant and sports psychologist for the United States Olympic Committee. She has some great ideas on how young athletes can reach their excellence on and off the field that you may have never considered. And finally, a high school soccer athlete, Mackenzie Carpenter, tells us her inspirational story of determination after several medical setbacks throughout her young career. It's all coming up on this week's Lessons in Positivity. Well, we're welcoming Meghan Klingenberg from the U.S. national team that won the FIFA World Cup and multi-time NCAA champion with North Carolina. And Meghan, welcome to the program. I know you're now playing for the Portland Thorns. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Scott, for having me. Portland Thorns, holy cow. What an experience. I wish that for every soccer player in the world that they could experience what I get to experience every weekend. Well, not right now, of course, but usually in more normal times. It's honestly one of the coolest things, pulling on the jersey in front of those incredible community of fans and the city, and having a giant party about soccer. Like, it's like literally having a giant I don't know, just this giant festival about soccer every week. It's really cool.
What's the difference between that and playing, for the national team in a World Cup, which has obviously got a lot of fans who are enthusiastic, to say the least, and big, in big venues and things like that. The Olympics, you were on the Olympic team. Talk about those different kinds of experiences.
Yeah, I think that the biggest difference has to be, when you're playing in front of your city, you're there every weekend and you build this relationship with those fans. You actually get to know them and they get to know you. And so that connection feels very, very strong, and it feels like it's knitted within the community structure. And that's a really amazing thing to feel, because one of the coolest things about sports, in my opinion, is that it creates a community of fans and people and coaches that love the game and love to talk about the game and love to get together, sometimes not even watch the game, but turn it on and hang out together and just enjoy that connection and family time. So you get that a lot during club matches. And then with the U.S. team, it's a bit different. It's more of an honor. It's very deep for me, pulling on that crest and pulling on those colors, because no matter what this country is going through, and we're certainly going through it right now, whether that is with COVID or whether that's we're talking about inequalities for people of color or women or anybody else, it's this source of pride that we are representing our country on a world stage, and we want to do the best that we can so we can bring joy and respect and all these different feelings to our fans.
So all of this could have been a little different, because there were probably some people think you're 5'2", and as you were growing up, and how many quarters?
3
quarters. Sorry,
yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
5'3". Sorry.
Almost. Yeah.
So as you're growing up, did you ever have people say, "Well, you're a good little player, but you're kind of small for soccer"? How did you deal with those kinds of comments?
Pretty much, as I recall, nobody really ever thought that I would become the player or do the things that I have done in my career. But that's okay, because those people's opinions didn't really matter to me. the people's opinions that did matter were my coaches that I really trusted, and my parents that I really trusted, and myself. And so all of the people that I really trusted and loved, and they loved me, believed that whatever that I wanted to do, I could do. And I think that that is that is such a strong statement, you know, especially when the people that you love and trust so much are one, honest with you, but they also have that belief that you will pursue this opportunity to its very furthest, down the very furthest path. And maybe I wouldn't have made it, but I think they had the belief that nothing was going to hold me back, not my height, not anybody else. The only thing that would hold me back was my own effort and my own belief and my own competitive fire.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice, because there are a lot of kids who think they're too small, or they have people telling them that stuff. You're living proof that you can do great things. I mean, think about all of the things you've been able to accomplish. I want to ask you though about, a lot of kids feel a lot of pressure, or they have a lot of stress before they go into playing. And how do you deal with stress? How do you personally deal with stress?
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I just think that I had so much fun, and I did so many different sports that losing one game, I would get really angry, of course, but it didn't matter in the long haul. For me now, I think it's a little bit different because it's my job. And so for my job, it comes with a bit more expectations and the realities of just living and providing for myself. So what I do, but I understand that for everybody, like, you know, rec level might be the absolute highest level that somebody can achieve. And that's okay. That's totally fine. And you might feel stress in that because that's the highest level for you. And so when you're going out to prepare, you might feel that anxiety of being like, well, this is my Sunday and I want my Sunday to be the best. And that comes with anxiety and stress and fear and worries. And for me, I think that sometimes, like every human, I let those get to me. But recently, I've really started practicing a lot of meditation. And I have started focusing on the present and trying to be a mind of no mind, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And as I've really started looking into more about meditation and what it does, I've found that it's not about not being there, it's about being present. And when you are only focusing on what you're doing, it doesn't allow those worries or fears or anxieties to creep in, because that's you thinking about something that hasn't happened yet, or something that already happened 10 minutes ago or 5 months ago or whatever else. That you those are things you can't control at all. So if you're focusing on your present and focusing on being in this space and allowing yourself to be totally consumed by what you're doing, you don't allow those fears and anxieties in. And so I know that's not for everybody, but it certainly has been incredibly helpful for me. I've noticed that the amount of fear and worries and anxieties that I have has plummeted.
What would you give as a piece of advice to Megan, the middle school, high school kid? If you could go back and say, Megan, let me just tell you how life's going to be and how this journey is going to be, what would you tell her?
Shoot. If there's one thing that I have learned over the course of my career, it's that not everybody is going to be professional athletes, but certainly that doesn't mean everybody should find what their passion is and pursue it to the end of that road, because not many people in life are able to achieve their personal best. And there is so much greatness in pushing yourself to your absolute max, whether that is juggling 5 times with your left foot or playing in a World Cup final. It doesn't matter whether that is, painting the Mona Lisa or, just doing watercolors with Bob Ross. It seriously does not matter as long as you find the end of the road because there are not many people that will pursue all the way to that end because it scares them. And if you can find the end of that road, can achieve your personal best, then you should be incredibly proud of yourself. I would tell her that life isn't always easy, but life is of value, and that when it comes to soccer, you'll have some incredibly amazing times and some really hard times, but the one thing that you need to remember is how much you love the journey. And then I guess the only other piece of advice for growth that I would give to myself is that I heard this quote recently from one of my favorite people, and he told me that good players want to be coached and great players want honesty. And that honesty can be really hurtful sometimes from people that you trust if they're telling you that it's not good enough. If you have to do things different, if you think you're here but you're actually here, and to not only listen but take action on that honesty.
Meghan, thanks so much for spending time with us, and we wish you all the best as you get the new season going, and where you've got going to have a whole new group of fan base rooting for you and around the country, but we do appreciate the time, and thanks for being such a positive athlete. You are just everybody always speaks so highly of you, and so I think
that's because I pay them, Scott. But
what's that?
That's because I pay them to speak highly of me, but.
Okay, well, and you'll get the check from Positive Athlete. Shortly.
Perfect.
Meghan, thanks again. Good luck to you, and thanks for the time.
Thank you.
We're joined by Dr. Tiffany Jones, a mental performance consultant to organizations like the United States Olympic Committee and helping them. And Dr. Jones, first of all, welcome. I'm going to call you Dr. Tiff because that's what all you, the players and the athletes call you. Welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you so much for having me. I love it. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about what you do, okay? Because we were really interested in this from the standpoint of a lot of coaches and a lot of parents and even a lot of kids who need to hear some of the things you have to say. So talk a little bit about your experience and what you do.
Sure. So I've been in the sports psychology world now for over 17 years. I work with professional athletes all the way down to the youth level. I am not a licensed psychologist, though I think psychology is great and psychologists are fantastic in counseling. I'm on the mental skills side of things. So I'm working with anything from performance-related issues with confidence, managing pressure, helping coaches create practices that simulate the psychological and physiological pressure that kids or athletes are going to feel when they're in game situations. And then on the other side of it, I'm working with teams on culture and communication and accountability. And then, of course, the hot topic is how to coach and parent today's generation of kids. So those are kind of the hot button topics that I work with and deal with on a daily basis.
One of the hot topics I know that you've expressed a lot about with young athletes and even some of the more experienced athletes is this idea of self-awareness and how critical it is to performance.
Sure. So I was just talking to a pro athlete this morning, and we were discussing, I said, self-awareness is like the absolute foundational skill for mental toughness or mental skills training. And because of our devices and our phones and technology, a lot of times we just don't ever sit with our thoughts anymore. And so these younger athletes, they get out of practice or they get out of games and they jump right on their phones, and they're never just at just sitting and being with their own thoughts. And so a lot of times they don't know who they are without their sport, or their identity is just in their sport. And we have to kind of parcel that out and help them do that. They struggle with their why, why are they even playing, to what is fun. You'll ask athletes, they'll tell you it's not fun anymore. And I'm like, okay, but what is fun? And they struggle telling you what is fun about sports. And so that is a huge thing. It's getting them to reflect and write. We have something that we have them do called a RUT, which is raw unfiltered thoughts. So having them write a RUT. which is just getting anything that's going on in their head down on a piece of paper, so we can understand their thoughts and their emotions. Because if we can understand that, then we can get to, the why behind maybe inconsistent performance or struggles they may be having. So the self-awareness piece is the absolute foundational skill. And there's lots of different cool things that we've come up with to really help athletes today to try to explore those internal thoughts and feelings.
I've heard you talk a little bit about having, though, when kids are going into competition, having a game plan. And sometimes that is going in with this idea of, hey, nothing could go wrong. And that's a great positive thought. But what are the dangers of having that kind of a philosophy?
Yeah, I mean, we hear all the time, like, keep it positive. And, if you do anything with visualization or imagery, it should only be seeing yourself doing the things right. But it's sport. Like I tell perfectionists all the time, this is the wrong kind of job for you to get into if you're a perfectionist, because sports is all about mistakes. And if you're training and playing on the edge of your ability, which is the only way you're going to reach your excellence, you're going to make a whole slew of mistakes. And it's not about the mistakes, it's about your response to the mistakes. And so I wanted you to go through in your mind or think about the things that maybe could go wrong in a game, a tournament, a match. And then I want to know what your response to it is, because the athletes that respond the fastest to lack of execution, mistakes, bad call by a referee, whoever can respond the fastest to that is going to typically have the most consistent performance, which often will lead to consistent results, even though you don't ultimately have control over the results. And so it's getting young athletes, especially, or even my pro athletes, to understand that. And today's kids, because we're bringing them up in such a box of you have to be perfect, you can't color outside the lines. We have a bunch of perfectionists trying to play a sport or play sports that is anything but perfect. And so really I spend a lot of my time trying to teach athletes on how to take risks. What is failure? Failure is when you just flat out give up. Making mistakes and lack of execution is not failure. That's just part of learning. And it's really also guiding parents and coaches to use that language. Because we confuse kids when we tell them to make mistakes, but then when they make a mistake, parents and coaches are throwing their arms up on the sideline in disbelief and can't believe their kid made a mistake and what is wrong with them and all of that kind of stuff. So it's not just educating athletes and teaching them. We really have to do a better job as adults on the language that we use more around kids.
How do you convince a young kid, though? Because pride, of course, even as adults, is a major issue. And so pride in all of that, being willing to write something down and be vulnerable, it seemed to be that would be a great thing to learn early in life.
That's why I would love to spend more and more of my time with youth athletes, because by the time you get them when they're 18 to 22-year-olds in college, they already have bad habits, or they put up a wall or a shield. And so often I'll know if they've had good youth coaches or the home life is good because kids have learned this vulnerability. And I say self-awareness is a foundational skill for mental toughness. The one that's right next to it is vulnerability. They kind of go hand in hand. And so you can't be mentally tough if you're not willing to be vulnerable so that you can become more self-aware. That's kind of the building blocks. And so when they trust a coaching staff, when a kid trusts their mom and dad or their guardians, when they trust whomever they're around, they're going to have no problem writing a rut. And so I find it interesting because younger kids have no issue writing. It's when they start to get older, they start to struggle because they want to know, how is this going to affect my playing time? What are people going to think about me? Is the coach going to cut me? And so it's creating a space or a culture where, you know what, you write whatever you want. It can be about the coach, it can be about anything, but we're just trying to help you reach your excellence and we need you to do this. But right away, if a kid or an athlete doesn't want to show the coach, then there isn't a trust factor between that athlete and that coach. It's a huge red flag, or with a parent.
Dr. Tiff, everybody wants to win, right? You go into your sport, nobody gets involved with a sport. And I mean, they may get involved to be just socially involved, but most of the athletes who are serious about playing, they have that desire, the real desire to win. But I've heard you talk a little bit about the lack of commitment that it takes really if they want to win. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So I keep talking about the why. The why, you want to know the why, because without a why, like a good why you're playing your sport, you're not going to have any motivation. And motivation is that internal passion, that flame, that fire And again, motivation is important because without it, you're not going to ever commit. But there's lots of athletes that go around and talk a big game. There's a lot of kids who go around and talk a big game. Like, yeah, I want to go to college. I want a college scholarship. Yeah, I want to be in the Olympics. Yeah, I want to be an All-American. Yeah, I want all these things. And I believe them. They talk a good game. But at the end of the day, what separates is the commitment level. And the commitment is the behavior. It's not what I hear. It's what I see. And so most of my pro athletes, I don't have to ask what their goals are or what their why is. Because if I follow them around for a week, I'm going to know based on their behavior and the choices that they make. And the thing with commitment is you're either in or you're out. It's not a buffet. You don't get to pick and choose what you want to do and what you don't want to do and then say you're committed. And so it's hard, it's uncomfortable. There's a lot of delayed gratification. And I can't promise you're ever going to get the results you want. But I know if you don't commit, you're not even giving yourself a shot to reach that goal or reach your excellence. And so it's holding the mirror up. And this is what really athletes don't really like is I'm the master at holding that mirror up and saying, you say you want this, but you are not behaving in this way. And so it doesn't match what you say you want. So we either have to change your goal or you have to change your behavior, your choice. But in my field, I'm doing a disservice if I let an athlete, a team, coaches walk around and say one thing when I know that their behavior is never going to get them there. So I'm the one that has to hold that big mirror up and say, nope, we got to change the goal, or you're going to have to change your commitment level and your behavior, or this is never going to work.
Dr. Tiff, we could probably I want to have you on multiple times with the show because we're just at the tip of the iceberg of all the different kinds of things and great advice and thoughts you can give. Talk a little bit about how people can check out your website and some of the things that you're up to.
Sure. If you go to xfactorperformance.com, there's a bunch of information on things that I've done and things that we offer. We're actually going to be offering a virtual mental skills elite performance camp that will be held July 13th through the 17th. There's going to be a bunch of pre-recorded information. It's actually for kids from 12 to 18, but the parents, there's going to be a lot of resources for you. There's going to be a lot of resources for coaches. And if you go to that webpage, there's all the information on how to register, but we're going to have some pro athletes come on live. Your kids or yourselves are going to be able to ask questions, parents, coaches, you're going to be able to ask questions of these athletes, anything with the mental side of the game. And we're going to have a bunch of experts that are going to be on, from strength and conditioning to athletic training to nutrition. So we're providing a ton of resources, and I think we're doing it in a way that most people don't do. We're being really real, really authentic. I'm giving you all the tricks of the trade. I'm not holding back. There's a huge workbook that goes along with this and it's very interactive. So even the pre-recorded, kids are going to be able to pause the recording, and we give them lots of activities to go try. And parents, they might be grabbing you a couple times to have you be involved in these activities too. So we'll see how well you perform under pressure when your kids challenge you to an exercise under pressure. So.
Well, thanks again for spending time with us, Dr. Tiff. Good luck with all you have going on, and keep us all positive and keep us and all these athletes that you're working with because this is a difficult time, and we appreciate who you are and what you do.
Thank you. And thanks, Steve, for everything that you're doing and what you're doing for high school kids around the country. It's just fantastic. The resources and opportunities you're providing kids, all sports, all over the country. It's awesome.
Each week, we feature a different high school athlete from our new book, The Positive Athlete, 100 Inspirational Stories of High School Student Athletes. You can learn more and purchase the book on our website, positiveathlete.org. This week, we feature Mackenzie Carpenter from Michigan, who went from being a healthy, competitive soccer player to someone who wondered if she'd ever walk again. She's next on Lessons in Positivity. We're joined from Canton, Michigan by Mackenzie Carpenter, one of our soccer athletes. It's featured on 182 in the book, the Positive Athlete book. Mackenzie, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hey, we're so happy you're on. You know, we had, in your story, you talked about the fact that you were a healthy soccer player and competitive soccer player and actually going into club tournaments and things like that. And then all of a sudden something happened. You physically started feeling poorly. Talk about that, and when did you first know something was physically wrong with you?
Yeah, I was in a tournament in Indiana, and I was playing I was a mid at the time, and I went down. I was blacked out, and it was really hard to like stand up. So they carried me off the field and went to the hospital and found out my blood pressure was dropped.
That has to be a pretty scary moment when you wake up kind of in the hospital and you don't know what's going on with you, right?
Yeah, it really was.
So you go back several times to the hospital. They don't really necessarily know. They think they know what it is. And then you kind of resume trying to play again, and then it happens again.
Yeah, that was really difficult trying to figure out what it was.
Yeah, and then you even had one of the frustrations you said you had was that some people were saying, well, maybe she's faking it, or doctors saying she's faking it. How did that make you feel?
That didn't make me feel too good. It's kind of hard, like when you're telling the truth and no one really believes you, especially going through something difficult like that.
Right, especially, yeah, you know how you're feeling, and all of a sudden these people, and some people said it was because, well, maybe she doesn't want to play soccer again, but that couldn't have been farther from the truth, could it?
Yes, I love playing soccer.
So in this whole process of they kind of start figuring out a little bit about what the problem is, and then you have kind of this issue where you're not even able to walk. Talk about that.
Yeah, that was pretty scary. I went through a lot of PT trying to be able to walk. It was really difficult seeing all my friends like go to state cup and being able to play, and I just had to like sit on the bench.
What's it like to lose that ability? You know, you're this healthy kid and all of a sudden you lose the ability to walk. What's that experience like? What emotions go through your mind?
It was really scary at first. I didn't know what was happening, and it was really sad because I got to see all my friends do all these things, and it kind of like hurt a little bit because I wanted to do all these things, but I couldn't.
So when you have something like this happen to you, and you kept a really positive attitude, and you've had some setbacks and things like that, what advice do you give to a kid who's like, things are going along great, and then all of a sudden they're not? How did you stay positive through all of that?
Well, I went to church a lot, and I really put my faith in God, and just seeing the positives out of like the negative situations really helped me.
Mackenzie, it sounds like your faith is pretty important to you, and that this has been a real driving force in terms of your positivity. Talk a little bit about your faith and how it's been important to you.
So I have always been a Christian, and when I got sick, I started leaning towards more of God because I didn't know what was happening, and it was kind of like the only thing that was like consistent. And I surrounded myself with that, and it really like helped me grow and like be more positive and just like care for others more, and realize that everyone's going through a tough situation in life, but everyone can overcome it.
What do you tell a kid who loses, like they get an injury or they have a disease or something like that? What would you advise them if you had a chance to talk to them?
Even though things aren't going your way right now, there's always a better outcome, and it might suck in that moment, but there's always a chance that you can do other things that are greater than that. Well,
we appreciate who you are, and you've done just such an amazing job this battle, and I understand it's still kind of an ongoing battle that you have to face, and I know everybody will be thinking about you and praying for you in this. Again, if you want to read more about Mackenzie's story, you can go to page 182 in the Positive Athlete book and get a more detailed description of what Mackenzie went through. But we wish you the best of luck. Thanks for spending some time with us and giving these encouraging words to other kids.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks again to Meghan Klingenberg and Mackenzie Carpenter for their encouraging words. Remember to check out Dr. Tiffany Jones' Virtual Elite Mental Performance Camp by going to xfactorperformance.com. We'll see you again soon on Lessons in Positivity.